Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, a retelling from the original tale by the brothers Grimm. The Queen was sitting at the window sewing and thinking about her baby who would soon be born. As she sewed, she pricked her finger, and red blood fell onto the snow by the ebony window ledge. I wish that my daughter be as white as snow, as black as ebony, and as red as blood, she said to herself. And so it happened. Her tiny daughter had snow-white skin, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. So she was called Snow White. But the Queen died, and the King married again. His new wife was very beautiful, but she had a cold heart and did not love Snow White. Every morning the new Queen would look into her magic mirror and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror would always reply, "Thou, O Queen, thou art fairest in the land." So the Queen was content. 7 years passed, and Snow White grew into a lovely young girl with her mother's gentle nature. One morning the Queen looked into her mirror as usual, but the mirror's reply filled her with a deep envy. "Thou, O Queen, thou art indeed fair, but Snow White is the fairest in the land." She ordered her woodsman to kill Snow White, but he could not bear to do such a wicked deed, so he hid Snow White deep in the forest. Poor Snow White wandered about until she was utterly weary. Suddenly she caught sight of a little light through the trees in the distance. It came from a little house with a lantern glowing in one small window. The door swung open at her touch, so she stepped inside. Everything was as neat as a new pin. A scrubbed wooden table was set with 7 plates and 7 cups. 7 little chairs were ranged around the fireplace, and along the back wall there were 7 little beds, each with a brightly coloured blanket. There was a basket of logs beside the fireplace, and Snow White soon had a cheerful fire going. She sat in one of the chairs, and before long was fast asleep. Now the cottage belonged to 7 dwarfs, and when they came home that evening, they were very worried to discover Snow White was fast asleep. They tiptoed round, preparing their supper, but as the wonderful smell of stew filled the room, Snow White awoke with a start. She was very surprised to see 7 little faces looking at her, but she soon was telling them how she came to be in the forest. They were very angry when they heard about the wicked Queen. "Might I stay with you?" asked Snow White. "I could look after you and have supper ready for you every night." The dwarfs were just delighted with this suggestion, and immediately set about making Snow White her own chair by the fireside and her own bed. Back in the castle, the Queen looked into her mirror and in the morning and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" But you can imagine her rage when the mirror replied, "Thou, O Queen, thou art indeed fair, but Snow White with the 7 dwarfs does dwell, and she is fairest in the land." So the wicked Queen disguised herself as an old peddler and searched out the dwarfs' cottage. Snow White did not recognize the Queen and invited her in. "Goodness "It's me. You need a few laces for your dress," said the old woman, and she pulled the new laces so tightly Snow White was unable to breathe. When the dwarfs came home that evening, they were horrified to discover Snow White lying on the floor as if dead. They lifted her up and, of course, saw the laces. They quickly cut the cord and the colour came back to Snow White's cheeks. "Now you know the Queen will stop at nothing," they cried. "You must not let anyone indoors again." The Queen looked in the mirror the next morning and went white with rage when it told her Snow White was still the fairest of them all. She disguised herself as a gypsy, selling wooden pegs and combs. Snow White remembered what the dwarfs had said and would not open the door. But the gypsy passed one of the combs through the window, and the minute it touched her hair, Snow White fell down in a faint, for the comb was poisoned. When the dwarfs came home and found Snow White, they immediately suspected the Queen. They found the comb and pulled it out. Snow White sat up, quite recovered. They pleaded with her to be more careful the next morning when they set off to work. So when a farmer's wife appeared at the door trying to sell apples, Snow White would not even open the window. "Why, anyone would think I was trying to poison you," said the farmer's wife, who was, of course, the wicked Queen in disguise. "I only want to give you some apples. Look how juicy they are." And she took a big bite out of one. So Snow White thought it must be all right, and she took the apple. But the Queen had poisoned it on one side only, and the minute Snow White took a bite, she fell down dead. This time, when the dwarfs came home, there was nothing they could do. Snow White was indeed dead. They could not bear to bury her in the cold earth, so they placed her in a glass coffin. They wrote her name on the side in silver and put the coffin in a sheltered part of the forest and planted wild flowers all around about. When the Queen looked into her mirror the next morning, it gave her the answer she wanted. "Thou, O Queen, thou art the fairest in the land." Years passed. Snow White lay in her coffin, looking as beautiful as ever. The dwarfs watched her, and one day they found a young prince kneeling beside a glass coffin. He had fallen in love with Snow White the moment he had set eyes on her. When the dwarfs saw how deeply the prince felt about their beloved Snow White, they agreed that he take the glass coffin to his palace, where he wished to set it in his rose gardens. As the prince lifted the glass coffin, the piece of poisoned apple flew from her lips, and Snow White opened her eyes. She saw the prince. She saw her faithful dwarfs, and she cried, "Where am I? What has happened?" There was a huge excitement, as everyone tried to talk at once. The prince wasted no time and asked Snow White to marry him. She agreed, as long as the dwarfs could come and live in the palace as well, and they all lived happily ever after. But what of the Queen? She looked in the mirror the morning Snow White and the prince were married. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror replied, "Snow White, O Queen, Snow White who marries her prince today. She is the fairest in the land." The Queen was so ugly in her rage that the mirror cracked from side to side and was never able to look in a mirror ever again as long as she lived. That's the end.